All right. This looks good. Believe it or not, we're good. We're going. So my question for you is I want to start off with the process of how three really smart people can collaborate so smoothly and effectively, and how it begins. Like the very first time you got together to work on this, what were you working with and how did it grow from there?
You want to talk about our audition then?
Yeah, I mean, go back to the beginning. The first film was a little conventional at first, had a script looking for the right two actors. But I always had in mind what would be necessary for this film to work would be two actors who could just give themselves completely to it and bring themselves and kind of rewrite the script with me based on the kind of the blueprint that what the script was. So as I met a lot of actors, I was just looking for that creative spark. And a lot of it's just instinct, who you think you could work well with, who seemed honest, interesting, hardworking, all these things, creative mostly. And I met these two along the way, and we had an audition, kind of callback, which Ethan says later he was offended to even have to audition. But because he was such a
star.
Not because I was a big star, but because we'd hung out. We'd had such a good time. See, Rick came to see me in a play, and we hung out and talked all night, and he sent the script, and I kind of assumed it was an offer, just because we'd hung out. But then I found out, that's like assuming the movies are improvised. Rick, you can't, he likes to work hard. So then I was like, I love the script. And then I found out, good, because he wants you to audition on the 13th. And come on, I was like, shit.
But it wasn't, I had to check chemistry.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked you. I figured you probably would play, but I didn't know. But it was like,
did I have chemistry with the other person? I have chemistry with everyone, right? Kind of.
I forget. I do know that.
That's the way of saying that. Maybe it was his lack of chemistry with you that got me the part.
Yeah.
Like he knew he wanted you, but the other guy, I'm bad with you, but the other guy was dead.
Really.
But you wanted her to be able to stand up to him too, right? Or there was an equal match.
I mean, the goal of this movie was to be 50-50, male, strong female, strong male, and to have that dialogue feel very, not to have a specific gender point of view, to be both. So it was finding those two people, and this is just how it worked out.
But you knew they could sustain, you knew in your mind that you were going to, because back then what you did was very innovative. The long, long takes was not the way everybody does things.
You say that as if it is the way people do it
now.
now.
It's become more so. I think people have caught up with it a bit. They don't do it as well as you guys do, but it has become. No, you don't think so?
In what film?
I just think more and more everything, television and movies, that the Avid has affected it. I mean, there are people that do really interesting film work with long takes, especially in Europe and different places like that. But overwhelmingly, the bulk of American cinema is bite-size.
But there were long takes. This.
Oh, tons of people. You didn't invent anything.
Yeah. I don't know, Barbara Lowe. Do you remember that film?
Mm-hmm.
I remember a long take.
But you had that scenario in mind going in, that it would be shot that way?
Yeah, I wanted it, the idea is to put the viewer in some kind of space that feels like reality. And if you do an uninterrupted long take, I have to think on somewhere in the viewer's mind, even if they're not aware of the technological elements behind it, that they'll accept it as real. So in Before Midnight, the very first scene is that, just with them, just to feel like you're hanging out with them in real time. You've entered their reality, unencumbered. And we have that in the very first movie when they're first getting to know each other. They're on the tram in Vienna. There's about over 7 minute scene where they're kind of playing this game where they're revealing a little bit about each other,
But
about themselves to each other.
This was 14 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So how many times did you do that?
Well, I wouldn't do this with any actors. That's what's always lost in this. It's not just something you can conjure up at will. It takes two performers who can get there, and that's not at all easy. What they make look so effortless, I can't explain how much effort goes into it. It's unbelievable. It's so grueling, and they'll both agree to do something that looks like effortless. So it's the hardest kind of acting to do, and I know they can do it, so I can push that. I'm like the head coach, cracking the because I know they have that ability.
And then if,
But I mean, it's
if
a
it goes
real-
well, people think we just are there making up our lines. You know, I mean, that's the
But it's
goal.
an exciting challenge. I mean, I have to say, it's such a challenge, and it's so exhilarating. I mean, it only feels good when it's over.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So you're not really contemplating doing it again anytime soon?
No. I'm like, no.
Not anytime. We
Not-
never.
not anytime
As
soon.
Julie says, it takes us 9 years to recover.
That's true. As intimate and as collaborative and as
On the writing,
personal
on the
as all this
acting,
is, there is a
the intensity is...
purging element to it.
Although it is funny, the first time, 9 years seemed like so long.
And
The second time, I feel like
nothing.
it was just a
It
little
felt like
while.
4.
And next time it's going
God, it'll be tomorrow.
There's the next time. We won't be
You'll
ready.
be 50 before you know it.
That's something to laugh about.
Not-
Well, you've also brought a lot of your own experience, and I've been married, and I've broken up, and I've been through this stuff, and so I am identifying very much with what you guys. The battle of the sexes is real, and I feel it. So, did it get really hairy sometimes in rehearsal when you were putting this together? There's anger in there. There's real pain.
Yeah, but it's so scripted, and actually we were, believe it or not, it's kind of fun to do a fight scene. There's something
Yeah.
about finding the right tone, the right emotions. You know, actors are trained to be on camera and cry and scream and be angry. That's what we're kind of trained to be, you know. So it's very pleasant, and just writing those lines and stuff. I mean, I remember actually the fight scene was probably the most fun scene to shoot, even though it was very intense.
Yeah.
It was
Because
still,
technically we didn't have to worry about
Yeah,
light. You know, we're in a
light.
confined.
It
It's
was in
normal. It
pieces.
felt like
it was hard at
And
times. I mean,
it was the
really,
most
really
challenging
hard.
scene to write,
And-
for sure.
Yeah,
Or none.
very much. But always
Well,
remember,
talk about that.
we're not
Explain.
shooting things at each other. We're taking things
It's like
from
building.
our own lives, and a lot of that stuff, the complaints we've heard about ourselves. We're playing with it, and there's a comedic undertone. Not that Jesse and Celine think anything's funny about that scene, but we as writers think that there's some humor there to be mined constantly.
Well, the
Like-
thing they threw at each other's faces at time is so, you know, it's not. I mean, I think it's, you know, but I've always thought fights are sort of funny.
It is because these experiences, you can't really isolate the fight
No,
scene to
a
ask
few
us
days
if it's
later.
cathartic, because the whole making of the movie is cathartic. And Before
Yeah.
Midnight, for example, is really that fight starts the second he says goodbye to his son, the first opening of the movie, and it builds to that scene. So there is something deeply cathartic about making these movies, but in the finale of it, that's where we killed ourselves writing. And the performing was fun because we were being asked to play and engage. And normally, Julie and I are really being asked to not act at all.
In
to
the
get
other
out,
scenes.
you know, and to,
Which is the hardest
which
part.
is actually, because as
Surprisingly.
soon as, even when you're in a fight, you're acting a little bit. You know, you're taking on a stance. You're
In
taking
real life,
In
you're
real
acting,
life, I mean, you know, and so there's some posturing going on. There's some
But
drama.
they're
It's
totally,
the non-drama that
yeah, I
Rick
mean,
loves.
the car scene, totally naturalistic, like we're having a good. The hardest thing, and we learned that on Before Sunrise, is have long conversation, telling stories, all this, how to make it in the acting, and also obviously the directing, not boring.
But not boring and not
bearable,
dramatic.
and not dramatic, not
It's like-
boring and not like over the top. So it's like, how do you find the right medium between being engaging without, and then the only way to do it is to do it like you're doing it in real life, like you're talking to someone. Because when you're talking to someone, telling them a story, if the story is good enough, it's engaging, and you want to listen to the end of the story. So it's really finding this right, you know, like this very minute little tiny window where that actual scene can work emotionally. It's this big. I mean, the aim is like the smallest thing you can possibly imagine.
The other scene that really impressed me was the group scene.
The dinner scene.
That looked to me like it probably was really hard.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just the two of you. There was a whole group of people, and
And
that.
they didn't know his way of working. So.
But you were also cutting. You were cutting more on that. scene.
Yeah, but that was interesting for us. I mean, for the first time to see Jesse and Celine interacting socially with people, which seemed very important for where they are in their lives now as parents and people in their 40s and the situation they find themselves in. So that was kind of very important to put in the movie. And then it was also a lot of fun to bring in people into our process for the first time in a significant way. I mean, that's a long scene. We wanted to feel like we really knew those people. And casting that was very particular. And we got a lot of really great folks, not necessarily all actors. A lot of them were directors. The older man there had never acted. He's a director of photography who.
That kind of worked.
Yeah,
it felt
it was
real.
He won the Oscar for Zorba the Greek.
Yeah,
and then Athena and everybody there was a very serious person. We had two filmmakers. The two young people are really excellent actresses. And Xena, the older woman, is a much beloved Greek actress. She's a very serious person. So it was a table of heavyweights, and it was fun.
How long did that take to shoot?
well, we shot it over 3 days,
Yeah.
but the first 3 days of the shoot. But we rehearsed for a few weeks.
Yeah.
The build-up was long.
Trying to get the writing of it right.
Yeah, just to dial it in to specifics.
Funny enough, interesting enough, not too long.
Well, just bear with me. The logistics, the mechanics of getting that script from point A to point B on any given scene, where it starts, how you hone it, and where it is at the moment you start shooting with the three of you.
Well, it's a writerly process. I want to emphasize. I mean,
Yeah.
we really, it's sitting around in a room and doing the hard work of that.
Where?
Where?
In this case,
Anywhere.
yeah, we can.
In
do
this
that.
case,
We could
in
do
an
it right
hotel
here.
room. Yeah, like here, right now.
Where we worked was a lot like this right here. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
some random room in a hotel, and we sit there, and all three of us have our computers
we
out,
eat a
we
lot.
talk.
So
We
you
might have some
scheduled
music
it for a
going.
week, for 2 weeks?
10
for,
weeks.
For 10 weeks
10 weeks.
Yeah.
of writing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that follows 2 years of
Figuring out.
outlining and thinking and staying on a certain track
Is
for
this
6 months.
On email or?
Not on this one as much.
Less
a
on
little
this
bit.
one.
A little bit.
One before we had a big email thing going between us. This one, I think it became
Nothing
obvious.
good happened when we were apart from each other. We had a meeting
Tiny glimpse.
in New York where we all kind of started daydreaming about it. Then we met in
2010.
in LA, and then we
Early
battled out an
2012.
outline where we really kind of knocked it into like, okay, this is the shape of the movie.
Yep.
And then we didn't.
Yeah, once
And
we
then
have
you had
that,
to lock us in a room
then
because we
every
were
idea
all
can
scattered.
fit. Yeah, then we weren't getting it done, and I felt, well, we just have to get to Greece and all work together. Just put in those hours.
In a nice place. It's really
Yeah,
fun.
we,
Really
unfortunately, we
beautiful
didn't see
place.
it.
No?
Well, like
We-
an hour
we
a day,
spent-
we would take a
yeah,
break
we would-
to go swim. It's
Yeah.
better than nothing. I mean,
It's better than nothing.
Yeah, it is nice that your break does entail jumping in the Mediterranean Sea.
I mean, we'd literally be writing. Yeah, we'd be writing. Okay, we don't want to miss sunset. Okay, yeah. Okay, let's
Yeah.
break. We'll take an hour and a half off. I'll see you.
Yeah,
We'll go
let's
swim.
When we say we worked hard on this, it's always relative to as a former
Yeah.
offshore oil worker. It's not hard. It's intense. It's psychically draining. It's not hard.
Yeah.
But were your families there? Was everybody hanging out?
Different times.
Yeah.
We were there a
Different
long
times.
time,
Yeah.
so
Which was,
families came and
I mean,
went.
they always have a great time. They're on vacation. I hear a lot
They
about
swim
it
every
after,
day.
but we're there.
They learn to swim.
Working, but
But you also know, but back to that other scene, anyone who's married knows that being on vacation is actually the dangerous
So
zone.
much work.
It is where the scary
easier to
stuff
be at the
can
office,
happen.
yeah.
Why is that? Explain how you
Well,
know
you have
that.
time to think, maybe.
And isn't the
And also you're
disappointment
in each
sometimes the
other's
premeditation of, oh, we're gonna do this and it's gonna be so romantic. We're gonna,
It's just like New Year's Eve, you know. It's never the best night of your year. New
or
Year's
your
Eve.
honeymoon, is it really the sexiest night of your life? It's like, usually no, I don't know.
Well, you're also busy. Everybody's busy. It's when you're on vacation that there's space to actually think about
You get
it.
a break.
reflect.
Also, the kids go to school for a while, so you have a break. You know, a natural break. And
There's
I
no
would-
break on
I always
vacation.
feel. I just took spring break this year. Taking 4 kids to the beach is a lot more work than writing our script. You know, I mean, it's
Yeah,
far
we
as
would
like,
also-
Without losing one. without
yeah,
losing
I
one.
slept well.
So the actual characters that you're playing are really changing and maturing and becoming a little bit more sophisticated in certain ways. I mean, it isn't the fantasy of the beginning. So how did you arc that? How did you find that place for those two characters at the end, of where you are in this
The
film?
backstory. I mean, that's part
That
of
was
the homework.
that we were doing.
We can't write a line to the screenplay before we actually.
We really want each movie to stand alone, too. You know, it's really important that I would really, my hope is that Before Midnight would work, that somebody could come in and see it and
Without knowing.
and relate to the story and love it as a movie, and then maybe be interested in the other movies or not. But that the dream is that each one of these pieces works entirely of itself. So the backstory and lacing their emotional track through this film is what's most important, because that's what's going to get some viewer who isn't already predisposed to like these people.
So what is the most difficult thing of all, of everything you had to do in the course of this movie, the most problematic? And
For me, I had a hard time with the very last scene of the film as an actress, because I wanted it to be real, painful, but not overly dramatic either. It's not a, because I don't want it, I personally didn't want it to become like a melodrama, and that's the fine line also. For me, was like, because we had rehearsed it, I had cried more, and then I thought about it, and I was like, it's going too far, it takes away some of the hope, like finding the right, for me as an actress, that was my kind of the moment where I was like, okay, if I go this way, it's too much, and I felt like, where do I go that it's painful for her, but it's still a glimpse of hope, and it comes back, the hope, it's not totally dim and destroyed by melodrama, you know what I mean? So that moment was very fine-tuning for me personally as an actress. I had like to find, and also it's the ending. You don't want to kind of make this big dramatic, because then it ends softly. So you don't want to end it like, oh, and then it's all better. You have to find the right. I mean, obviously Rick was there.
Endings are difficult. This one we came to very slowly, the exact pitch of it. The second movie, we had our ending in the outline phase. In the first film, we worked on that ending up to the time of shooting. But it's a pitch.
It's very moving.
Right, but she's
did
right.
it right.
But I didn't want to
couldn't
go
be too much.
far. It's not a.
It would have
or not far enough. I mean, it's a far.
Yeah,
you don't want to be
funny.
casual about it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
try to
a
get
funny.
Again, that's why I said the pitch of it, the tone was a.
I was acting, which is like really trying as much as possible, which is kind of twisted if you think about it, but like to feel the pain that she was going through for real, like, but in a real way, not in a film way, not in an acting melodramatic way, So that was how to find that. That was for me the hardest, but personally,
So what is this 12-year movie project that you two are doing?
In the early century, I was wanting to make something about childhood, and I couldn't really figure out what point of childhood to make it about, thinking of my own childhood. So I just had this idea of filming a little bit a year and watching a kid mature, grow up. So that was the the big idea. So I filmed pretty much a little bit every year over the last, 11 years now, so.
Of your child?
No, I cast. It's a fictional thing.
And you're in it?
That's
Ethan
the father.
plays
Wow.
the dad. Richard Linklater plays the mom, and it's just the kid's kind of growing up. So 1st through 12th grade, and kind of we shot some not so long ago, and it felt like we're kind of coming to the end there. But it's another film about time, I guess, in a different way. We drop in on Jesse and Celine every 9 years. And that film is probably an imperceptible, just growing. You just sort of 1 year fades into the next, so it's contained, but
Time lapse of human development.
so a little different in the time trajectory. But I guess time is the lead character there. Where here it's the major supporting character, I believe. In that film, it's probably the lead character.
very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.